Coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech, anticipating more earth-shattering movement in the future for college sports. We're talking the haves, the have-nots, the cans, and the can'ts. And Texas Tech is in the category of...
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So visit FanDuel.com today to get started with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. And on today's episode, we'll continue to look down the path we have before us. Somebody's going to clean up at FanDuel based on these things being right or these things being wrong. Scattered, I mean widespread all over the map. Way too early, top 25 looks at the upcoming college football season. And interest peaked in the 806 because certainly curiosity among Red Raider fans as to where Tech's going to land here. Is there investment being made from some media attention into the additions made? Is there skepticism because of some offseason hype, dark horse-wise, a couple of years ago you didn't live up to? We'll get to what that entails in just a moment. I also today want to get into a conversation that I wonder if it's kind of flying under the radar for some college sports fans out there. And depending upon the program that you root for, the university you attended, you're probably going to want to pay some attention to this. And this is within a Power Four kind of landscape conversation, Chris. We know that the NIL has created another opportunity to create a gap between the who and the who's not, the have and the have not. Of course, college sports in general since day one has been an enterprise for the haves versus the have-nots. The richest, the best, get first pick again next year. That's kind of just the way it's been working out for over a century now. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on what will be another sort of upcoming line drawn in the sand when we get into this revenue distribution and revenue sharing era of college sports. And I'll actually bring you in just a minute some comments from Iowa State Athletics Director Jamie Pollard as it relates to some possible trouble, I guess, looming on the horizon. But, Chris, this is not, as we break it down, a Power Five versus Group of Five type of dynamic, I don't think. As you'll hear from, say, the Iowa State example in just a moment, there's concern as to those within a power conference context right now, particularly, say, ACC or Big 12 country, that could still not, I guess, meet that grade and remain in a so-called power category. So this is going to impact some names that maybe are not even considered small. Some familiar household type of stuff here, I think, could be in these crosshairs.
Yeah, if the House settlement is approved, which we expect some semblance of this to be, this is what schools and the NCAA is rooting for. I think they will do what they need to amend what the judge wants and maybe do it kicking and screaming or whatever, but they're going to, I think, figure out some common ground here in the coming days to where that gets solidified, because this is kind of what everybody wants. I don't pretend to think that everything will just be tucked nice and neat and put up and we'll move on our merry way when all this is done. I still think there'll be some gray area that I think everybody will be maneuvering through. But bottom line is, it means that every school will have, starting out this fall, a $20.5 million bill due. And it's up to them on where that money goes to, but that's a bill that will incrementally go up, the year after and the year after that, to where, like in the last year of this 10-year settlement, it'll be closer to $30 million a year than it is 20. And I think that some schools are just fine in paying that because of either TV revenue and they can afford the bill and whatever else outside of that they would need to. I think Texas Tech and some of your BYUs and the like are probably going to be just fine. But not every school, even in the Big 12, is going to be good to go, and without having to change the way maybe they do business or change the way that they operate on a yearly basis with their athletic department. Can we keep every sport? I think Texas Tech has tried to maintain that standing that they're not cutting any sports, and that they feel like between donors, the Red Raider Club, Matador Club, and the actual university, they will be able to pay this bill every year, even as it goes up. I don't think not that it's necessarily going to be easy, but I think there is not any concern that won't be allowed to happen here. But not everybody's in that boat, Callan.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary thought as the future is concerned. And I, discussed this many years ago when you'd hear so much from various groups here or there, student athletes on campuses across the country. Not all, but there were some very vocal, if you will, that I really thought needed to really be careful what they were wishing for in some of these contexts, because it was not always the football player or the men's basketball player that was saying, hey, we'd like a bigger cut or a cut. There was plenty of that, but every once in a while there was also like a rower or a badminton player or something along these lines. And if you really wanted to enter into that revenue producing, generating, and then sharing model, whoops, all of a sudden the real world is at your door. And if your university, your fan base, your whatever sphere of support is not able to step up to this plate that you're just describing right there, your program could cease to exist, I guess, in some worst case kind of scenarios. So I'm glad Texas Tech, I think, and we'll get more into this in just a moment, is in a position to pursue what you're saying as far as keeping everything still intact. But that's not going to be the reality for so many across the country. And I think as you look back now to what will be, I guess, considered once upon a time kind of an antiquated and just lollipop and rainbow land where everybody is subsidized. And yeah, there's always going to be, the diving team. Why would there not be a diving team? Well, it doesn't make any money. And now we got bigger bills because we're sharing some of this money, or whatever words you want to use to describe it. Sharing sometimes doesn't quite feel right, but you get the idea. So we're talking about a brave new college sports world. There's no doubt about that. And that was partially what Jamie Pollard, athletics director at Iowa State, was talking about. Recently made a podcast appearance, and he's talking about this number, this 20 million-ish number, this big bill that's due. And this is beyond just obviously NIL conversations, but some of what Jamie had to say is really pointed. He said, quote, Iowa State does not have that $20 million, but if we don't pay it for this coming year, we got big problems, right? So we're going to pay it. He went on to say, and he went backwards for a portion of this, saying, quote, because of tremendous financial discipline and everything we worked on over the last 20 years, our athletics program had a pretty substantial cash reserve we built up, but we used that during COVID. So we didn't cost Iowa State. We didn't cost the student body. We didn't cost the Board of Regents a dime to get through COVID. Little detour here for a shot at Iowa, I'd like to include, because he did. The University of Iowa got a $60 million loan, or the athletics department from the university got that loan, said Pollard. Now, they haven't paid a dime of that back yet, but they got a $60 million loan. We did not take a loan. We funded it from our reserves. Point being, he concluded saying, we can't fund the $20 million. In about 2 years, we'll be out of this reserve. So we'll be faced with an athletics program with a huge annual deficit. If it wants to stay in the Big 12, if it wants to have a Power 4 athletics department, we can decide we just want to have an athletic program like Northern Iowa, but that's going to have a huge economic impact on the state, on Central Iowa, the city of Ames, and on this institution. Interpretation, translation, big changes, man. Like you're talking about there, you may have to kind of rethink the process if you want things to continue as we're accustomed to.
And this goes back to the root of, look, the people that donated, let's just localize this to your portal party.
Love to.
There are people that were very willing to donate toward the cause, help out, specifically in football and men's basketball, to try to enhance your profile in these two programs nationally. You're trying to win, you're trying to be very relevant nationally, and the like. You viewed this as a window here where you could take advantage of some rules before the rules potentially change. Maybe they don't. And so you are throwing assets at this to try to maintain that relevancy or even push forward in football's case. With some of this donation, some of this motivation is coming at it from yes, we want to win and we want to win right now. But some of this motivation is playing the long game here. There is very strong views that in 2 to 4 years, there is going to be another shakeup.
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on all the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet hits. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to really win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
But some of this motivation is playing the long game here. There is very strong views that in 2 to 4 years, there is going to be another shakeup, i.e. a have and a have not, super conference, however you want to frame it. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if anybody quite does just yet. You are trying to get out in front of it, like right now, that you've got some cachet and you've tried to take advantage of the time leading up to when this shakeup would be, and your leadership views it as in these are the two sports that move the needle, and really it's football if we want to get right down to it. But I think basketball is a cousin of this or distant cousin, but I mean it's a factor, and it's a nice come along. Hey, come along with me, man. If you compare it, then you're really cooking. But that's really where a lot of this comes from, and I think that's when you see Jamie Pollard talking about not really worried about right now, but I am in a couple of years. And this bill is going to go up. And I think, again, everybody realizes there's more movement to be had. We're not done with realignment or everything isn't going to be settled with whatever the landscape looks like. We just don't know, or can pretend to know where things are going to go. So that's some of where your motivation comes from. But luckily you're able to do this and try to almost play the long game from that standpoint. Whereas Iowa State and who knows how many other schools are looking at it like, we've got to start worrying about, can we even pay that one bill, on a yearly basis in a year or 3 or whatever it is. And I've seen some of these places. Like, I mean, I really am curious about like some of the new additions you've made to your league. It's pretty well documented that both Arizona schools are in pretty difficult financial shape. I can't speak to that directly. I just think that is the word out there, that there's some things that you can go Google up and kind of learn a bit more. But I wonder about like your University of Houston, your UCF, places like that, your Cincinnati's. I don't know if they're going to be able, or are they in the same boat as Iowa State? Because you'll hear some of these, like I wouldn't have thought Iowa State was in a spot where you're outwardly talking about we may not have the money by then. So they are. This is also a warning shot, basically saying, "Hey, community, hey, fan base, we need your help."
Always be closing.
ABC, man.
And always be insulting your rival. I love that too. That's why we want college sports to survive. You're talking about your money trouble, but you go out of your way to at least take a shot at Iowa.
Yeah, they're living that credit card life. We're out here living clean, trying to do the thing the right way. But yeah, weird shot to take. But Jamie Pollard's never been shy about kind of firing off a shot across the bow.
Gotta love it. I mean, that's why we want to preserve this thing for a long time.
Sure,
in the future, moments like that. It's just down to dollars and cents, really. I mean, you're talking about the football and men's basketball programs being kind of front doors and about really it's football. There is a large gulf between football and men's basketball on the vast majority of campuses across the country. And I mean, like 90% of them, 95% of them. I don't remember what it was looking like at that time as far as the total number, but I think, I don't know, about half a decade ago, it was 5 or 6 of these universities, athletics departments that were actually funded in majority by the men's basketball program. It's like a Syracuse, Duke kind of combination, UConn, some of these types of locales, but otherwise it was football and football by a large margin. So it's not crazy that you would really try to support those to the greatest extent that you could, because that's what's going to essentially row the boat for everybody else. But I'm curious to see what will play out in some of these other instances, Chris, that really kind of make me appreciate what you've got going on at Texas Tech, and whether it's the kind of market you serve or just a flat out fan base, or like I said, sphere of support that you've got to utilize here, even though you're still very young and growing as compared to some of your peers who have been around forever, and some of your neighbors just right down the road who are more well-financed in the kingdom of God. You certainly have made a lot of progress, and you compare a situation to something like in Ames, Iowa, or I don't know, maybe Manhattan, Kansas. I love Lubbock because it's the biggest small town that you can really find, but you also look at population numbers, say in the Big 12, and it makes you kind of appreciate the market just around the 806 that you've got to serve as a university, aside from huge collections in the Metroplex or elsewhere in the state of Texas. So I know Texas Tech seems to be in a fortunate situation. I don't want to say you're set, because you got to keep these wheels turning. Obviously, there's no rest or anything like that. But I'm curious if you could dive in a little further. What would you really point to that you think has lined up well, or has been lined up and organized by real people with 2 hands, 2 feet in most situations to put Texas Tech in this kind of situation? Do you go back to some of those names we know that are really familiar as far as monetary support? Is it in general more of a alumni base or fan base kind of conversation? And you've always got the option of all of the above as well, I guess.
Oil.
Drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, I just think that is the easiest one-word answer. I mean, large in part, that's what a lot of this stems from. Not all of it. There is, you are fortunate that you have had very wealthy and important people in positions of leadership put their ego aside and work together. And I think that is extremely important. I think that you have a huge care factor. And when you have a lot of money behind that and then motivation to go with it, I mean, that's what has created a very unique and interesting circumstance for Texas Tech. And that's just not the case at a lot of places. Some part of that equation is amiss, or thinks of themselves as too important, or I don't want to work with that, or that's not how I want to do it, or whatever it may be. I think right now you are lucky in that you're very aligned. And I think that's a bit underrated. We've talked about that on this show multiple times before, but I think because it takes a bit of a village to do this. It's going to take a lot of money and resource. Because I get what Jamie Pollard is doing. I think he's creating public awareness for hey man, this is real. But now if I'm a player and I'm in a recruiting and I'm looking at Iowa State as an option and some other options, I'm going to wonder okay, are they, what's their standing? What will their standing be? Are they going to be able, and maybe Iowa State's going to say, we're not worried about play. If a player is worried about 50,000 here or there, they're not for us. We'll recruit, we'll develop. I trust Matt Campbell and all that. But that kind of thought being made aloud will be used against you. I can assure you of that. It may not work, but some will try. But it's definitely, kind of waving and going, hey, need a little help here. I'm taking on some water. I've got the holes plugged up right now, but I don't know if there's too many more holes in this thing. I'm going to run out of, buckets to, whatever.
Buckets. Possibly a new boat. We don't know yet, but
That's right. That's
I
right.
guess there are a
So
couple different approaches, like, hey, let them see you sweat, or never let them see you sweat. But Jamie Pollard said, I'm sweating, take a look.
yeah,
So
that's exactly right. That's
see how it
exactly right.
works out for him, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there will be some on the other side of that line, whatever that does actually look like, and not just in the form possibly of cutting programs, but I wonder if some, in the interest of maintaining programs, are taking demotions as an athletics department. It's insane to think about, but maybe that's how you keep it intact. And if that's actually what the appetite's there for, maybe that's the route for some.
And I'm going to say all this because again, you're with Kirby and President Skuvenik and the Red Raider Club and the Matador Club and all those things, and Cody and Dusty and everybody that's involved with everything, Gary Peterson. You are in fact going to give some things a haircut.
First, today's episode brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. And with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and a whole lot more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Plus, it's fast and easy. You can post a job free and simply, and within a day, multiple qualified candidates are there to choose from. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
There'll be some budgets that are slightly amended. You're going to try to be smarter and sharper. You're going to try to do some things in creating some additional revenue, like selling tickets to the spring game in the end zone. That's a new thing that I don't think had ever been done before. And maybe I'm off there, but I mean, that was something new. I don't know. That may be a drop in the bucket on what you were able to make from that. But I mean, that's the general premise would be the idea. But
Chris, I saw Virginia Tech as an example, adding something to student fees that was going to tally $17 to $20 million annually. And this was one of their approaches to trying to make up.
Maybe you will go that route. But I just don't know where everybody's belief is on how some should share the cost here. Are you trying to? But like, I'll just tell you, I don't think Texas Tech is really, the athletic department has ever really taken much from the actual university. Some schools take a ton from the actual university. You get into state funding, or that's not what this funding was supposed to be for, whatever. But I think that the endowment for the university is massive. And I think the athletic department has never needed to necessarily take from it, even when maybe some were suggesting, hey, man, do it. We don't like this coach. Buy him out. We want to do this. We want to do that. We need to build this. We need to build that. Whatever. They just never crossed that bridge. And I think that President Skuvenik has gone out of his way to, I think, make the athletic department with the battle you're trying to fight right now. We will help with what we can. We are ready to be able to do that. And he may take some grief for that, but I applaud it, because you're in, I think, the minority as far as what schools are actually giving athletics. Because I saw the man win an award the other night at the Overton at a football foundation dinner, a National Football Foundation dinner. And the whole premise of the award was, thank you for what you and your position has done for athletics. But too many presidents or too many people in positions of whether chancellor or president places, they don't grasp the front porch of the university, which in more often than not, it is the athletic department, and specifically football, or in your case, football and men's basketball. This is what creates enrollment. This is what creates the economic growth in your city, because you're relevant and you are good and you're in a big league and all the stuff, right? And President Skuvenik understands that, gets it, and is willing to do what he can in his position to try to help there.
I was going to say, there's real numbers to back this kind of thing up, or this effort on behalf of a university. If you're not a fan of that or something along those lines, then you just must not be a fan of Texas Tech as a university being better resourced and more prepared for the future, because I think we've seen this in a national title game instance from a basketball standpoint, and you can probably look all across the country. Whenever your teams, whatever they may be, get put in that type of national spotlight, there's a real numerical impact to that as it relates to eyes on you and enrollment and everything that comes with that. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to be hand in hand. Of course, if one can survive on its own, you certainly would like to go that route. And if you've been fortunate enough to do it, then great for you. I think that was actually something, back to Jamie Pollard at Iowa State, he was pointing out, and it's been well documented, Arizona State as an example, where there have been tens of millions, 50 million poured into its athletics department by the university. So obviously a ton of different circumstances are all across the country, but a whole lot to feel good about as it relates to the one going on here in the 806. And man, before we get out of here, Chris, and I do want to get into this general topic with you a little bit later on, and maybe a broader kind of way. But speaking of Arizona State, was taken in a post-spring top 25 just a couple of days ago. Sun Devils, the lead representative out of the Big 12 conference. Texas Tech not too far behind them. I think maybe 1 and 2 in a 15 and 16 slot top 25 wise in that particular look at a post-spring top 25. Got to talking about that, and then you're hitting me with another one. Hey, Tech ain't even on the list. Wait, okay, so is this the type of gamut we're going to be running this offseason? And really the question I want to get into with you on an upcoming episode is regarding possible skepticism given this team and some recent results as we head into 2025. So I know you're seeing this widespread of different perspectives on the Red Raiders.
You are seeing the groundwork laid for what this preseason poll, whether it be top 25 or just a Big 12 poll, is going to look like. And what's fascinating about it is this league is very unique from the standpoint of, look, Clemson's going to be picked to win the ACC, hands down. We know that one of 2 or 3 teams will be picked to win the SEC. The same will go for the Big 10 conference. But the Big 12, it's a bit all over the map. It's wildly entertaining. There's no common ground to be had on. You can't just close your eyes and be like, I know this program is going to be in the top 2 or 3 every single year. That, it just doesn't work like that, because damn, man, the 16th pick team in the conference last year won the damn thing and then went to the playoff. So go figure. But what you're seeing is you're seeing some groundwork laid that people are going to have a hard time projecting for Texas Tech. There's a lot of unknown here with a lot of these teams, but people are going to either go with a lot of that unknown and assume, or they're going to go a lot with what they do know. Which quarterback is back? Which coordinators and head coach is back? What returning nucleus is back? I'm going to go with that because that's the one thing that I know. And then there's some history here on things. I'd have a hard, because what you're seeing is, yeah, we've seen Tech 11th in one poll, and then I've seen a couple of them where they're just not listed. And I understand that. I get it. I'm not so certain, which is weird, because as you're doing the portal party thing, I think that you have seen and heard enough that the most Tech fans probably feel like you're either going to be picked to win this league or in the top 2 or 3, maybe 4th. But what I'm seeing with some of these polls is you could be picked to finish 6th or 7th in the preseason based on how their preseason ranking would go. And I'm not so certain that if you're the coach and you're trying to find buttons to push, or you're trying to be able to squeeze as much as you can out of players, that you won't prefer that you're the pick to finish 6th or 7th. Because as opposed to being picked to win it when you haven't done anything and you haven't ever won the thing. So you lost your bowl game, all the stuff. And so I don't know, because Arizona State, Kansas State, Iowa State, BYU, those are consensus in everything that I've seen. Then there's the Texas Techs, TCUs, and Baylors that are either kind of in and in well in some cases, or just out. That is kind of but those other 4 are in everything that I've seen, and I think understandably so. These are all teams that either won the league or had double-digit wins last year, and I think in every case their quarterbacks are back, their head coaches are back, And I don't take offense to it as the folks that sit here and talk about Texas Tech. But it's going to be interesting to see kind of where you fall, because it is anything from 11th to unranked. That makes no sense to me, but yet it makes perfect sense.
Life is a conundrum. I'd like to get back to like an umbrage meter. How much umbrage are we taking if the Red Raiders are not in these glowing terms as we build up towards the fall? So we'll get back to this season of skepticism conversation on an upcoming episode. I really feel like there's one thing here that's just changed the dynamic, regarding skepticism. And I'm talking from a media perspective, and that's the seeming talent infusion that you've had to the roster. And a lot of that can't be ignored. Some of the physical traits that we see there, but that's not what makes up a football team in its entirety. So obviously a lot more to that equation. And man, what a calendar for Arizona State. Just insane. Every time I get that reminder of I knew they were low, but that reminder of their preseason real estate prior to the years, it's just crazy. And Texas Tech gets a win over them at one point in the year, but I don't feel like it's any fluke either, because I think they were in a position to deserve to win that game in the playoffs. So if not for a few unfortunate circumstances that benefited the University of Texas, maybe that would have happened. So I don't know what to expect again in the Big 12, but I expect it to be hopefully a lot of fun and featuring a whole lot of one-score contests once again. All right, Chris, appreciate your time and the insight as always, man. Enjoyed it, and looking forward to the next one. We'll see you then.
Sounds good, man. Keep hope alive out there, everybody.
And get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Appreciate the everydayers always being out there. And look into our show notes for a link to a free 14-day trial if you're interested in becoming a Matador Mobster. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.